This episode is brought to you by Squarespace, an all-in-one website platform that allows you to make your own portfolio site, blog, or online store with very little effort, and it will look beautiful on phones, on the computer, on anything. Go to squarespace.com and use the promo code THUMBS for 10% off your first order.
You should really say at checkout in the future, but it's okay. We'll let this one slide.
Go to squarespace.com and use the promo code THUMBS at checkout for 10% off your order. How about that, Jake?
The underwear ad last week was better. All we need to talk about is that selfie stick for like 3 minutes.
Can you just like excitedly bring it up after the intro?
I can now. Are you ready?
God, this really is a classic.
Are you ready? It's time.
How are we talking about games?
Okay, let's get some
How do we
silence.
do this?
Let's get some silence, you guys. Okay, good. Nick.
Actually, okay.
This is when like you realize you're just an old dad and like your life means nothing. Where you're like, oh man, ready? Silence, classic episode. Well, it's February 18th, 2015.
This is Idle Thumbs. Oh my God, 198?
Yes.
Is it really 2 episodes away from 200?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Oh, is it? Oh my God, is it gross? It is. GDC is like now.
Oof. And I'm Nick Brecken.
You can't say and. Now you're blowing it all up. It's all ruined. And I'm Jake Rodkin. And on this podcast, we forget everything and we just make dumb references to ourselves forever. All podcasting guides say that it's basically incredibly bad form to open your episodes with meta content that talk about like how you're fucking up the show and like who everyone is, but you're getting it wrong. You don't know what day it is. Your recording equipment's going bad. I feel like that's our bread and butter.
What do those guides say about the rules for talking about that stuff?
I think that talking about podcast guides in the introduction to your podcast is probably the number one content. But number two content is when your podcast has a one-time recurring Doom Selfie Stick mod segment. When everyone saw that there was a Selfie Stick mod for the original Doom, all they thought about was, I can't wait for that Idle Thumbs Doom Selfie Stick mod segment. They couldn't wait for Super Stickman Golf on their iPhone. There's a mod for Doom where one of your weapons is a cell phone on a selfie stick, and then when you use it, it shows amazing pixel art of the Doom Marine like posing wackily
from a selfie stick perspective.
Yeah, of whatever, and you can sort of scroll through different responses of like looking like a boss or going whoa, and looking surprised, or like making like a face.
So he just runs up to like monsters and then takes a selfie next to the monster while like pointing the thumb over the shoulder, being like,
this guy. Yeah.
It's really funny and good. It's a good video. It's like a minute long.
Number one failed feature of Doom Selfie Stick mod video is that the selfie cut to camera is not what's behind you. It's literally your view.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Oh.
You should have to walk up to the monster, turn
around, and then pop out the selfie stick. Yeah. Oh, man.
Oh, my God.
Because if that was the case and you just didn't have a chance to pose...
John Carmack, if you're listening.
Yeah. Tom Hall's original design for Doom had the selfie stick turn you 180 degrees around. No, man, I went to Alcatraz this weekend.
Oh, for the Ai Weiwei thing?
Yeah, to go see the Ai Weiwei art exhibit, and that was really good. I haven't been to Alcatraz in a long time. Alcatraz is like the place in the city that gets the bum rap for being the tourist spot, but is actually just fascinating to go to. Like even the audio tour is good. That said, man, if you make video games and you go to Alcatraz, you're ruined because all you do is take pictures of every stupid windowsill and like chipped paint. Like,
right.
You could basically make like all the textures for that new Unreal style. That's like the like painted white with just like stripes on the walls. Look just by sampling everything in Alcatraz, and then you can go to the medical wing and get all the photo reference you need for Silent Hill. Where it's just like haunted wheelchairs and like, oh man. But the thing that I noticed, because I guess I just don't go out in public anymore very much.
Cool.
Is Holy shit, there's a lot of selfie sticks in real life. I feel like that happened.
isn't that weird? It
That
was
happened
like
fast.
overnight.
I feel like it was like, oh man, Kanye
Yeah.
has a selfie stick. Everyone has one now. Like they just non-ironically have
Although
selfie
I will
sticks.
say that I do only see them in places where tourists are likely to be.
yes, and
is true.
I suspect
The
that
Golden
there is.
Gate Bridge is a big
Oh, yeah.
selfie stick.
Golden Gate Bridge for sure.
People driving across the Golden Gate Bridge.
I imagine those came from another part of the
Terrifying.
world. Like those surely were popular in some part of Europe or Asia or
Japan,
somewhere.
probably.
Yeah.
I've seen a number of Asian tourists with. I feel like the first wave of selfie stick users I saw were like Asian tourists, and then since then it feels like it's just broadened to the population at
Oh
large.
man, it's so weird.
And
It
now
makes me
has
feel.
hit Mars.
It makes yes. Well, we know
Oh, I'm sorry, Phobos.
Phobos. Yeah, one of the moons.
Yeah.
They're a little ahead of the curve on sort of the Mars
Yeah.
system. It made me feel incredibly old. That's a recurring sentence on Idle Thumbs, but man, because it made my
And in
brain
your life.
and in my life. But we always talk about how we're old because that's another thing you should really try to do if you got a podcast. But it just made me like more so than people taking regular selfies. When you have an apparatus to take a selfie, I just like it makes my old man voice go. I would happily take the picture for you. I'm a pretty
Right.
good photographer.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Like I
actually
could frame a shot.
Yeah, so I think there's actually probably something to that, in the sense, and I feel like I fall prey to this as well now, because we all have cameras with us all the time, which we all do. The act of like deciding to take a camera with you because you're going to be in a place that is conducive to photography, or because you're with someone that you want to like record the memory of being with, or whatever, like that's not a choice that happens anymore because you always have your cell phone with you, unless
Right.
you're like really into photography and you have a crazy camera and you want to go out of your way. Most people are not that. And so because having a camera is ubiquitous, taking a picture is not a special enough occasion to warrant like bothering a stranger, or at least it doesn't feel like it.
Right.
And so you
That's
just-
totally true.
And so you just get accustomed to like, I'm going to take a photo. I just take it with my phone. I'm going to take a photo of myself. I will point my phone at myself. And so, yeah, but you're right in the sense that it is, you will get a better picture.
Yeah, I see people take these shitty pictures of themselves at Alcatraz, and I'm like, I know within taking a selfie, taking a really good selfie is something to be proud of. Although once you use the fucking stick, all bets are off because you're cheating. Mm-hmm. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you could get a really nice vacation photo by just asking a person to take your picture.
I know. And I feel like I often don't take advantage
No, neither do
of
I.
other
I don't either.
people
So
being
whatever.
around.
But that said, a selfie stick fits thematically with Doom. I mean, you're the only guy there, really.
That's-
so like,
yeah.
it's,
So
it's like
true.
the isolationist
It's the
theme.
ultimate selfie.
Right.
The Doom 3 selfie stick mod would be fantastic because Doom 3 was all about UI and picture and stuff. So your
Oh,
selfie
you're
stick,
right.
your selfie stick could be in world and it could actually be like a requiem for a dream situation where you see yourself
Yeah.
attached to
You know
your
what
own
would be really
hand,
cool
but you couldn't use it at the same time as the flashlight. Unless your selfie stick's on a phone with a flashlight.
That's where it's been the whole time.
Yeah.
He just didn't, he forgot his selfie stick, so he
Yeah.
couldn't just,
Man, selfie stick Doom 3 mod. Someone just make that, please. We're just lazy webbing this.
Brendan Chung, make
Yeah,
selfie
Brendan
stick.
Chung
Brendan Chung
basically
would
is
make
who we're putting out the call to.
Yeah.
Someone could just do that fairly easily, and it would fit right into that engine.
Yes. It would also fit thematically with that game way more than a lot of them in terms of, because that game is a Doom game, but it is way more even about you just creeping around. So it'd be like a selfie stick that also is recording like a paranormal activity found footage thing inside of Doom 3. Because like in that, you'd see something coming up in the background behind you on your selfie stick. You snap the shot and the flash goes off, and then the picture that you see is just you about to be wrecked.
Right.
Oh,
that would
man.
that would be a really cool game jam idea.
The real selfie stick game.
Yeah, like
A found footage horror game
right
using a selfie stick.
Selfie stick. Because I don't know if that could sustain an entire game, but I feel like that would be a fun 5-10 minutes.
But I mean, Doom 3, all of its mechanics could not sustain an entire game, so you might as well just put the selfie stick
true.
into that.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, I had stuff to say in our one-time recurring selfie stick Doom mod segment.
You did.
Yeah,
it's true. You really circled that all the way back around. You went to the Alcatraz thing, and I thought that was just going to be...
Oh no, I brought it up only because of the selfie sticks.
Wow.
I came prepared this week, Chris.
Apparently, I didn't.
No, I didn't at all, actually. Now,
Speaking of Mars,
oh my god, it's perfect. It's perfect.
yeah.
You mean speaking of
Jake
how
and I
you-
both played a video game.
You should join an off-world colony or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We played Offworld Trading Company by designer of Civ 4, Soren Johnson, and also
And host of Designer Notes, the podcast at idlethumbs.net/designer notes.
He's the hoster of Designer Notes.
The hoster.
Yeah.
With the moster.
There's only two hosts being compared.
Hoster's choice. Anyway, yeah, we played that game. I don't know. I really love this game.
Could you explain the premise of it?
Yeah, so the premise
is a turn-based economic strategy game, right?
It's not turn-based. It's real-time.
Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, so that was actually the thing that threw me at first when I was like, oh, Soren, creator of Civ 4, making an economic strategy game.
What's fascinating to me about this game is that it shares more in common with Sid Meier's Railroads than it does with Civilization.
Interesting.
In fact, like I loaded up...
Actually, that was like one of the only ones I didn't play was Railroads.
Yeah, well, and also... God, I forget his name, but
that's because in that you're like a railroad baron, right? Is that correct in Railroads, or what are you? What do you play as?
You play as a railroad baron basically. It's kind of a light version of Railroad Tycoon. But it has the same stock system. So in Railroads, it was a supply and demand kind of thing. There were cities all around the map and running in real time, and you connect them with rail, build stations, and each city supplied a certain type of resource and demanded a certain type of resource. And then in the background, there was a stock system where every player in the game, had 10 shares of stock that you could buy at any time during the game. And so basically, the game essentially was like mainly like 90% of the game was just playing, connecting, making money by connecting cities. But then there was this like sort of in the background, the stock thing going on where you could acquire, just buy out other players. And that's sort of how you won. Mm-hmm. And Offworld Trading Company takes that system and makes it basically the entire game.
That's kind of the whole game. It feels like the turn-based stuff it's not there. It feels like it's a real-time strategy game mixed with like a German-style economics board game. Like it reminded me of playing.
It feels like a board game.
It reminded me of playing Imperial 2030.
I was going to bring that up,
but entirely in real time. And we talked about Imperial 2030 ages and ages ago.
Years ago. Nick, were you? I forget. Were you still in San Francisco when we started playing those weekly Imperial 2030 games?
I missed out on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was during the Out of Thumbs podcast days.
Yeah, that was during the Steve Gaynor era.
Yeah.
But so in Offworld Trading Company. Oh, well, I guess just top line, I was still expecting game round length to be in the school of Civilization because I knew nothing about the game, where I was like, okay, I'm going to sit myself down and I'm going to start this game. And I'm expecting that like 6 hours later,
for hours,
something's going to, but instead it's like the rounds are 30 minutes long at the most. It's like, it's real-time strategy game round lengths. It's like, so in Offworld Trading Company, you play as one of many groups of like sort of corporate colonists who found on a patch of Mars. And then you all that you build is base like structures. There's no individual units. You have like little like ships and things that sort of move things around the world for you that shuttle your resources around, but you have no control over them. They just sort of are on their own sort of thing. So it's entirely, which makes it also feel
tick. It's basically each resource.
Like if you build
each building is collecting a single resource.
Yeah, if you build an iron refinery, it ticks up, and then when it's full, a vehicle goes and deposits at your base.
It's like the Anno games.
And you can press like flush resources now and get the ship to leave immediately.
Right, but generally speaking, on the left side of the screen, there's a list of all the resources that you can possibly have. And then the tick rate. So, like, if you have an iron mine that is giving you, or I guess it's a total tick rate. So, if you have iron mines that are giving you like 0.5 iron per second, it just says 0.5 next to the resource. Right. And so you have a basically a real time tracker.
It's production
of what
versus consumption.
Yeah.
But the thing about that is, all of those resources also have market values.
Right.
So, if you are overproducing. And then you're like, oh, I have 30 iron, and iron is each worth $10, so I could dump this and get $300.
Yep.
If you dump all of that stuff, you're flooding the market with iron, and then it reduces the value of it. So then you have to also be paying attention to sort of setting up more elaborate supply chains to sort of chase higher-priced items and end up trying to become like an electronics lord or someone who's making a lot of glass products or something, like things that require multiple, like a really elaborate base that's building all these things. But then none of that stuff. You level up your base and you can add a patent lab that lets you sort of claim certain pieces of technology, like you can make your vehicles require water instead of electricity, and you can build all sorts of other various add-ons, but you eventually upgrade your base to build an off-world launch tower, at which point you can trade your goods back to Earth where they are worth an obscene amount of money.
What's cool about that, too, is that generally I've found that the goods that are worth money to Earth are the basic goods that you start the game with. So, like, it's like food, oxygen, water. Like, those are the goods that
right. You're building all your silicon factory and all that stuff just to be able to be a lord of Mars. Yep. But then what Earth actually just needs is food, it turns out.
Yeah.
But the way that you actually win, since this is an economic game, is by doing all of this trading and market manipulation to acquire enough money to buy controlling interest and then eventually buy out 100% ownership of any other player on the board and be the last the last person left.
Are you guys playing against other people or are you playing against a computer?
I've played a bunch of rounds against computer, and then Steve and I did co-op against the computer, which was really fun.
Oh, that's cool.
I've never tried PvP. I've just tried that co-op thing, but when Steve Gaynor and I played that, it was actually great. We totally got our asses kicked, but we set it to the largest map size, average resource scarcity, and then Steve and I were on a team. 2 other computers were on a team, and 2 other computers were on a team. And the way that the team system works is actually awesome. At least it did in the alpha that I was playing. It just went into early access beta last week, I think, and I haven't played the new build of that.
Oh, okay.
But the way that resource sharing works is super simple, but also like leads to all sorts of disasters and also like really triumphant things, because like if I'm producing oxygen at like a level of +5, or like if my demand is 3 but I'm producing 7, I have +5, I have 5 oxygen to spare, so I can press share and my +5 then also goes to Steve. But then so Steve gets my oxygen and I also get any of his negative overage. So if he was like 3 in the hole, I'm then only producing +2, whereas if he was like 6 in the hole, I would be -1 now. He'd be draining my oxygen.
Right.
But if he says he'll also...
So when you say share, does that designate you
It's
as the
one directional share.
Right.
So that means that Steve's oxygen production is his plus anything coming from me, whereas mine is mine minus anything that he's leaching. Yeah. So also he can then share oxygen to me as well, and then it is a 1-to-1 shared pool.
It's a big bucket.
Where it's just a big bucket. So what we did when we first started, we're like, hey, let's just link up. We just shared everything. That was a disaster. That was an absolute disaster, because you just have no sense of what the other person's doing, like at a micro level. So you're just like, oh, like we just bled each other dry immediately.
Yeah. It's really easy to lose this game quickly.
But then alternatively, if you don't pay attention to that stuff, you can just be a total jerk. Like I was like, man, I've got all these resources. I could just upgrade my base. Ka-ching, ka-ching. And Steve didn't say anything, but I just sort of heard like, huh? Over voice chat. But then like the next round, Steve was like, man, we're making all this money off farms. I'm just going to like launch. I'm just going to buy this other guy out. And I was like, I just heard this ching, 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 and I watched Steve's ownership in another company go all the way up, and I was like, Steve, I built like 15 farms. That was the resource I was providing to our team. You just took all of my money and bought someone, and then I was bought out like 3 seconds later by someone else because I was worth nothing.
Right.
Oh man. So like, you have to actually like, it gets into the multiplayer because of the resource sharing feels actually like weird local politic jockeying stuff where it's like, our district is actually really rich in this. I'll share some, but oh my God, I've been exploited, but it was entirely accidental. Where just like
how the Bronx is just like the garbage dumping ground for New York City. Like,
yeah,
it's where all the garbage goes in the morning.
Yes, except that the Bronx can't just be bought out and disappear from the map. It's not that it disappears from the map. When you buy someone out, as you would expect, you get their base as an additional base for you. So that is exciting for a second, unless you've bought out a shitty ass company. And then you're like, cool, I got a base. I got all these new, oh my God, I just now like everything is in the red. I have to like there was a reason I was able to buy this person out. They're terrible.
That's interesting because that dynamic also occurs in Civilization, but just through very different means.
Yeah.
But like, it's totally possible in Civilization to quickly expand your empire, then realize that like all your citizens are miserable and you're bleeding money, and like you have all these garbage cities on the like borders of your empire.
You can lose for that in Offworld
totally
as well. You can lose.
Offworld. That's a lot of the background of Offworld is deciding when to take on risk, and very quickly you can, because there's always a debt. You have your actual cash, and then there's a debt counter, and the auction system in Railroads is carried over to this. So every now and then there'll be an auction for like a plot of land or a technology. You know, basically
like
it's
a
just
really
kind of
valuable
like
resource on the map where they're like, whatever. A 3-level iron resource is available,
Right.
and then everyone auctions for it.
which is super valuable because one of the major limiters in the game is that you for each level of your base, you only get so many claim tiles or claims for a plot of land.
Right, if you upgrade
So
from
yeah.
level 2 to level 3, for instance, then it's like, oh, you've upgraded, congrats. You can only place 4 buildings,
Right.
unless when the black market opens, which is another separate thing. It's in the black market, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you can then pay a huge amount of money to buy an additional claim.
Yeah.
But sometimes they come up in auction as
Right.
well.
Yeah. But yeah, so you can basically like via the auction system just find yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt.
Yeah,
which then decreases the price of your shares, which then makes it easier for you to
I
be
think
taken
auctions
over.
are the only thing in the game that automatically just dump you straight into debt. You can't buy resources into debt.
Right. You can be running a deficit like
Your electricity, your base resources.
The base resources can start. You'll auto buy those because you need oxygen. You need.
But yeah, there's sort of how
food,
much debt you accrue, and then also there's multiple different faction types you can play. You can play as humans. You can play as scavenger humans who have slightly different resources, or you can play as robots who don't need food and water, but whose machines work in a very different way. But like,
it sounds complicated, but the interesting thing about this game is it really isn't. Like
No.
I thought after an hour of playing, oh god, there's this game seems incredibly.
But if you play through all the tutorials, you beat the last one, and that's actually for me when it clicked when I won the science victory of the science tutorial, and I was like, I think that I know exactly how bad I am at this game now,
Right.
But I know how it all works.
Yeah.
It was very rare at that point that I would like have all of my citizens be unhappy and starve to death, or like that I would just get ruined immediately, but I would still get ruined often because the game's actually incredibly challenging.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the I have found that I almost never play real-time strategy games anymore. The genre I used to play a lot of. And the reason is because I don't really play multiplayer games anymore, especially not with just random people on the internet. For just a lot of reasons, I would say, both sort of time-related reasons and also sort of just like psychic reasons related to my sanity and
telepathic reasons.
No, I just mean like
Yeah.
keeping myself at a certain level of like low stress to whatever extent I can do that.
I think StarCraft 2 1-on-1 is basically the end of my career on
me too.
internet.
But anyway, because of that,
No, I agree, yeah.
I end up rarely playing real-time strategy games because so frequently they end up either having a fairly uninteresting single-player campaign or they're just multiplayer games with computers, which just always doesn't. It's just it rarely feels like awesome to me. Whereas, like, I'm totally happy to play Civilization against a bunch of computers or any of the Anno games against computers. 'Cause it more feels like I'm managing my own thing as opposed to like I'm constantly
that feeling is closer.
Someone.
That feeling is closer to me in Offworld than
That's
a
what I
lot
was
of
gonna ask
real time
about,
strategy games, but it's not as far in that direction as a Civ or an Anno.
The thing is, you can lose so quickly in this game if you're not paying attention.
You're not paying attention, then you suddenly hear your stock is being bought. Your stock is being bought.
Oh god,
your
it's
stock
terrifying.
is being bought. And you're like, oh my god, and then it's just
It's a
over.
nuclear launch detected.
Yeah,
It basically is, yeah.
But the thing that makes me not be bothered by that is that the round length is so short. Like the round length,
no, that's great.
The round length
Yes.
is a real time strategy game round length, but to me, the feeling of playing against AIs is less annoying than just like playing a random rolled quick pickup against an AI in like a unit based strategy game. But maybe that's just me.
No, I feel the same way. I
also
feel like
think-
this game is manageable in a way that I didn't expect, that I really appreciate. Like, it definitely could have... It feels like it could have spiraled out of control in a way. Like it could have become a tycoon game very easily, and I feel like the restraint...
It's really
to
comfortable with just closing down the game after a very short period of time and being like, that was enjoyable. What you want to do is play another one and do better than that, instead of like what you want to do is burn your life into the ground.
Yep.
Did you play the campaign at all?
I didn't.
I haven't played the campaign either. I've just played the tutorials and a bunch of quick matches, which
I
So there is a
started to play it.
Okay.
It feels like what it does is it takes certain mechanics and allows you to, I guess, create like specialists or something. Like basically just, probably just rule switches, that just modify the game a little bit.
But yeah, I guess the fact that I played as many just like quick pickup games where I set a couple rules at the beginning and went.
Wait, sorry. I need to just correct myself. I think I implied Anno was a turn-based game, maybe on accident.
Oh, you didn't.
Oh, I didn't? Okay.
I don't think so. I think you just implied that it has a feeling of the AI existing, but not as just a fake robot competitor, but as a thing that exists
it's
in the
part
world.
of the world. Yeah. Okay.
One thing I would recommend with this game, actually, though, specifically, do not fall into the trap of playing on normal speed initially. Like, slow it down to snail pace. That for me. Like trying to play this game at normal speed with people buying stock and just like acquiring my company out of the blue, like slowing it down to snail made it closer to a Civilization experience for me. Particularly the opening of the game, where you the opening of the game is essentially the Civ place your base moment.
Where you get
and trying to do that while other bases
hang
are
out into the world and see what resources are near you, then choose where your base plans.
Yeah, you can pause at any time and place objects.
So how does that work if you're playing against somebody else?
It's all happening in real time. There's a cooldown. Like the more aggressive.
But how do you run the clock at a slower rate if you're playing against someone else?
Oh, I don't actually know. In multiplayer, there might not be a clock.
Yeah, I don't know.
But all I've ever played is co-op, so I don't know, because I feel like Steve and I might have been able to adjust time. I don't think we could.
Can you rewind time?
I don't know.
You ever play that game?
Anyway.
This sounds really good.
It is good.
Yeah.
I mean, from what I've played, it is good. But yeah, the
I've played 12 hours, and I'm probably going to play another 12 at least.
I feel like I've played about 8 or 9, which is a surprise.
That's a lot of hours.
Pretty good, yeah.
For me in this kind of game. I love playing as science. I love it the most. I'm terrible at it, but it is the most enjoyable faction.
Why?
For me
What
to
does
play.
it mean? What does it mean to play as science?
If you play as the sort of perk of the science team is you can place an object, like you can place a base on a resource that would usually require refinement. So like to make steel, you need to have an iron mill that then sends things to your steel refinery. But if you're the scientist team, you can just place a steel refinery right on top of a raw iron resource. But you get one fewer claim per base upgrade, so the actual rate of expansion is way constricted. But a science win for me is so satisfying, because if you get everything working the way it should, you're just an advanced lord immediately, and you just rule everything. But at the same time, you're running super lean because your base is like 3 upgrades below everyone else, because you weren't able to just afford like food and shit to just generate you staple goods.
I do find it has that same Civilization appeal in that, like, it feels like just from the get-go you can have a plan of the sort of play you want, the sort of like, arc you want your playthrough to have. And then try to execute on that, which is, I find, pretty unique to Firaxis games, at least in terms of, computer games. It's really good. Like, I've at this point still, I have things I want to try, which after 12 hours in a game that is actually fairly limited in scope, like, that's really cool. Like, also, the black market stuff, there's a lot of like offensive things that, like, if you're not doing those, this game is much more difficult because everybody just picks on you. And if you're not actively,
I've hardly ever touched the black market.
Oh my god! Like, if you're not EMPing other players,
I have done that a little bit.
I've
EMP players. I've sabotaged some claims.
Yeah, it's and
I've only done like one of each, because there's the other one where you can like place pirates in the route between them and the Offworld hub. And then you can just steal all their stuff. Yeah. I've done that a little bit too.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sort of the black market pops and the auction pops happening in the middle of everything is like, it's overwhelming at first. But if you're going to play this game, my recommendation is actually just play through all 6 tutorials. The first 3 feel incredibly easy. Where you're like, I get it. But even though it's saying just play as expansionist, play as science, play as this, each subsequent tutorial, like the first one you play, you have more money than you should at the start. The second one you play, you have the normal amount of money. The third one, the black market is introduced. The fourth one has auctions. The fifth one has auctions that include the full gamut of auctions. And it actually brings you up to speed at a pretty reasonable pace. Just, you'll feel like you're really smart after the first 3, and then you'll try to play a quick match and just get wrecked.
Yeah.
But it's good.
Yep.
Anyway, I don't know if there's more to say unless you got something.
No, I mean, it makes me want to both play this game and also play Imperial 2030 again. That is, Nick, I don't know. I guess you've never played it because, you weren't around.
I played it, the other Imperial.
Just regular Imperial? The Austro-Hungarian one?
No. The crazy with the hidden card and you have to play like 10 games.
Oh, Risk Legacy?
Oh, never mind. For some reason,
No, Imperial 2030 is like an extreme German-style board game where you are playing as basically potential investors in a futuristic military industrial complex where by being the majority shareholder in a country, you control its military and its expansionist plans. But there are also other players on the board. You're playing as the only shareholders who care, who matter. Right. So
that's right.
So you could be the majority shareholder in Brazil who's then going to act on Germany, but the person who has a near controlling interest in Brazil is the majority shareholder in Germany. And the weird sort of just political economic gaming that happens.
And your country can get bought out from under you. So the country that you, like a country that you currently control, someone else can become the majority shareholder in it, at which point, like, the thing you've been planning for 5 turns.
It makes you become detached so quickly, though, because you started thinking it's risk. Where you're like, I'm going to invest in Brazil.
I'm Brazil. You start thinking, like, I'm Brazil.
And then someone's like, I've bought Brazil, you're nothing. But at the same time, like, if you're Brazil and someone else is the majority shareholder in Germany, but they're the minority nearly in charge of Brazil, and you're like, Brazil's going to attack the shit out of Germany. There are situations where you, as the shareholder, minority shareholder in Brazil, majority shareholder in Germany, where you're like, that's probably actually still in my best interest because it'll pay so well for Brazil that I can buy you out, or I can use that in my plan against America or whatever.
Right.
Like,
yeah, you want to be diversified and you want to be invested in companies. I'm sorry, in countries that. Excuse me. What am I? I'm just a well-meaning shareholder. You want to be invested in countries that are going to become valuable whether or not you control them.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're a minority shareholder in everything, and or in if you're only a minority shareholder and you don't have a majority stake, you control the Swiss.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And then you get weird other powers.
Yeah,
that
I forget
can't remember
what exactly you can do.
I remember Steve had a stealth win as the Swiss, and it was you have special economic neutrality powers. We talked about this ages ago, but I haven't played it in a long time.
I haven't either. It's been years. I would like to play it again.
Excuse me.
You're excused. You want to take a break?
Excuse me. I do.
We're all excused.
Video game.
Thanks, NatureBox, for sponsoring this week's episode of Idle Thumbs.
We got our new NatureBox in a few days ago.
We ate it immediately.
They were all gone instantly.
NatureBox is a delicious snack subscription service. If you go to naturebox.com/thumbs, you can check out a bunch of different snacks they've got, and you can get a sampler pack, including one full-size snack of your choice and a few others that they like for just a $2 shipping fee. The variety of snacks is ever growing and increasingly ridiculous, but it's all really good.
We got those pineapple slices that we've often mentioned. Those came back in. Those were gone like that. That one also came with sriracha cashews, which I liked a lot.
Got some mini waffles, which I liked.
Oh, yeah, those were a weird snack.
Yeah.
Naturebox.com/thumbs. Get your free trial. They're in Canada now, too. Many readers have asked us about that. They're delicious. We eat them instantly when they arrive.
Man, I thought you were talking about Canadians.
We eat them instantly.
Naturebox.com/thumbs.
Video game.
Remember the days, Chris, back when we used to record this podcast in your apartment?
Oh, you mean back before excellent website creation tools like Squarespace?
Yeah, remember when I would just hang out at the Telltale office at like 3 a.m. updating idlethumbs.net by hand, editing those tables?
I do remember that.
Well, if I had used Squarespace, it would be a fuck ton easier than that because that was a disaster.
That's true. Squarespace is an excellent platform for making any kind of website. Maybe you have a podcast like we do. Or a blog or an online store or portfolio. If you go to squarespace.com and use the promo code THUMBS, you get 10% off. It's really easy to use. As we know, Sean's dad has been hooked up with the Squarespace site. I was checking it out the other day because he talked about it a few weeks ago. It's really nice. I like that it has Sean's dad's flavor all over it, including bullet points like no BS. It's like no BS accountant service or something. Like it's really... It's a funny thing to see on a Squarespace site, which you usually associate with like...
I've made reclaimed clogs.
Right, exactly. Something like that. But also, if you're like, middle-aged or older guy who just wants the government out of your taxes and you need to tell people that on a website, Squarespace will do that for you.
Squarespace.com. Use the promo code THUMBS at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace.
Thanks, Squarespace.
Video game.
We would also like to thank Hover for sponsoring this episode. Hover is a fantastic domain name registrar. They're affordable. Their service is great. They offer all sorts of features that usually are incredibly annoying and buried or cost money on other services, but on Hover they are free or nice. Everything about their presentation is good. If you go to hover.com/goldblum.
That is, it's not an error, by the way. That is actually a real thing that will work.
Yes, hover.com/goldblum will get you 10% off your new domain name registration. Hover is a really good place to go to register a bunch of dumb domain names. I mean, you can get a good one. You can get a classy domain name. idlethumbs.net, for instance, one of the classiest domain names, is serviced by Hover. But you could also, get whatever.
Goldblum.xyz. Goldblum.website, if you want to make it really clear that this is a website about Jeff Goldblum.
Or other Goldblums.
I mean, these are goldblum.actor. You could make a really topical, accurate website.
How has Jeff not locked down goldblum.actor? You can get that for him for
right
cheap.
now. You could go to hover.com/goldblum. That's hover.com/goldblum and register goldblum.actor out from under the nose of actor Jeff Goldblum.
Of actor Goldblum. So, thanks, Hover, for sponsoring us this week.
Associates. Some of these are...
Goldblum.associates is top shelf.
Hover.com/goldblum for 10% off.
Video game.
Are we back?
I think we're back.
Are we back?
Oh.
Yeah.
No?
Oh. No.
Nick is Jake, you were pointing out, this is the thing I totally forgot.
I wasn't
about
pointing it
Offworld.
out. Nick was pointing it
Nick
out.
was
Interesting
pointing out
fact.
an interesting
Nick
fact.
pointed it out. It was credited as someone who is not Nick.
Shut up.
You know what they say?
Yeah, they say that Offworld Trading Company has no combat in it.
Oh, yeah.
And I totally forgot about that. That's like
does have
actually
no
a real
combat.
Yeah, you
unusual thing for real
You can
time
send
is
little
extremely strange.
pirates and sort of blockade people out, but it's still not. There's no unit-to-unit fighting is not a part of it because there's no units.
Right.
But it's fascinating because
That makes
of that.
me so much more excited to play this game, honestly.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like combat in real-time strategy games is just is packaged stress for me at this point.
There's still packaged stress, but
No, that's okay, though.
it's
That's fine.
like the micro of this game feels more like just trying to eke by economically in really dire situations and not the outcome of a battle. It's like
Right.
the most epic game of this that I played, I was in a bidding war against another person. We were the last two people left, and it came down to them generating $50,000 in revenue before I could because I knew that we each had acquired 50% of the map, and I looked at our resources and was like, oh my god, our valuation is the same, like our stock is the same.
Yeah.
If I can just dump all my resources quickly enough and get those stupid ships there, I was bought out. But a scramble over that has not happened to me in a game. I don't play many games like this, but it's just such a different feeling. It feels so much more like a board game or like the end of a not an RTS, I guess.
I feel like I have to get back into board games. This conversation is made. I haven't.
It's when we're talking about economic simulation.
No, I know it's totally true. We had a phase for like a year maybe where we used to play a lot of board. Back in like 2009, I guess.
Yeah.
Where we played a bunch of board games for a while, and I feel like since then we've had like pockets of maybe a few months where we've gotten into board games, but it's been a while. It's been a couple of years maybe for me now since I was really into them, and I kind of miss that.
Yep.
Really
I'm sorry
nice.
I talked over you, Nick. You wanted to say something.
Oh, no.
quickly.
No, it's fine.
No, speak, Nick.
No, I was just gonna sort of talk about an anecdote. It really does feel like the stress-inducing aspect of that game is relegated to basically the moment of your demise.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I think actually to thinking about that, I think Chris, you probably would be able to swallow most of this game without freaking out about it because there's really not much you can do to guard against that final moment. When it's happening, it's
Although I like
incredibly
that now-
stressful, but you can slow it down.
You can
and just
cast
sort-
a wary eye over and look because you can click on the different civilizations or the different factions or whatever.
Right,
settlers.
you have all information.
And you
That's
can-
the other thing.
'cause
There's no fog of
you
war.
sort of look and go, it looks like you're doing better in a way that is maybe aggressive. No.
I made the mistake. So I've won one round of this game.
I think I've won two, maybe one. I've also only won one. Epic. Gross.
Yeah, awful. But the round prior to that, I came very close. And the mistake that I made was I bought up all of my own shares as a defensive measure because people were starting to acquire me.
Then you don't know how fucked you are.
Oh, so yeah. So
Because you can't buy yourself out.
But it warns you not to do that, and very wisely so, because the second that you buy out other people's share, like when people acquire shares of your company and then you buy them out of those shares, they get a ton of money. So I bought them out of my company. I was like, I'm gonna be fine now. I handed them like $1 million, and then literally, like, because it's real time, really in that instant, like, 2 other companies acquired the other 2 companies, and then those 2 companies merged, and then they were all just like one company, and then I was bought out the next second later. Like, it was just everything just folded in on itself just instantly, and I was just demolished.
So this is the intersection of 2 facets of our modern world, one of which is like the increasing conglomeration of like major industries, and the other of which is automated stock trading.
Yeah, robots
so
buying
what if,
stock.
What if the SEC and the FTC didn't exist, and mergers and acquisitions were handled by computers the same way? Like,
it would be this.
Microtransactions.
We would be one guy going, "No, you robots, get out of my stock," and they're like, "Thanks for buying us out." Like, that, just like a life simulator happens that ends with you destroyed.
Right. Yep. The singularity is simulated in this game, basically.
Yeah,
this is what would happen.
You don't think about the fact that everyone's invested in your company. It's probably actually doing pretty well.
Right.
So by giving them all of that money, you've also just suppressed the shit out of the value of your company.
Right.
Oh, it's bad times.
Yeah. Yeah. All those rockets just explode on the launch pad. Yes, the robotics.
Finally, independent free once again.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's outrageous. That just sort of...
Oh, no, it was amazing.
See the money, like, just as actual liquid pouring from one pot into the other into a bigger and bigger pot, and then you see yourself sinking down into it.
Yep. I clicked the button, and 2 seconds later, there was that buyout check on my desk.
Also, Nick, I appreciate that I appear to have inadvertently, like, successfully created an image of myself in your mind as someone, as essentially a bundle of nerves that able to, with at any moment a video game can just push me into like cowering like mess of a man.
Well, that would do it. Well. Although then when you lose, it says you're as a reward for being the CEO of this company that was acquired, you get $3 trillion or something. So it's like the game over screen is a check for $3 trillion.
Right, golden parachute. Game.
You get a golden parachute at the end, no matter what. Which is
that's pretty funny. Also true to life.
Maybe you don't if all of your people die. I've only ever gotten bought out. I think I don't think I've ever had all my people just leave because I'm too shit.
Right. Maybe a robot kills you and your corpse is just lying on top of.
Okay, man, we got to talk about robots for a second.
Man, there's been so much robotic news recently.
Robot
news.
There's been such robotic news. I actually don't know how much robot news there's been other than that one Boston Dynamics video it's a new...
Oh, that's true, yeah.
God, I don't remember what it's even called. They haven't... Boston Dynamics, the creators of the BigDog, have a new... I'm sorry. My body is just... It's dying at the thought of these robots.
It's called Spot.
Spot. Yeah, Spot.
I didn't see this.
Okay. I know this is how all of them have worked, but their videos never show it. You know how you see the Boston Dynamics videos, and it's the robots, but they make huge, horrible noise. They're often plugged into those giant cables. The Spot video is like a big dog, but it's the size of an actual big dog, and not a huge fucking cow.
Right.
And the way
I think the cow is there's a cow one that's bigger than a big dog.
Yeah, I know. There's also the big dog though that's like the size of just a bear.
A big dog is like the size of a big cat, an actual big cat.
It's like a lion or something. Yeah.
A big dog is big cat size, whereas Spot is big dog size.
So the video
they're just preparing for the like robot future where robots sort of forget what animals look like.
There's a shot at the beginning of this video.
It's the Boston Dynamics office.
Yeah, I know. Where that's like the Boston. It's like the lobby, and the lobby is Spot, the new dog-sized one, then the big dog, then
that huge hilarious cow one,
the huge hilarious one, then an even bigger one. There's 4, right?
Yeah.
And then you're looking at this lineup, and then Spot just like bounds away. It's just
it looks like a still JPEG of the lobby, and then one of the robots just comes to life and starts walking around the halls of Boston Dynamics. Then it goes out into the parking lot. and it's just like running around like a fucking animal. And they do the things where they kick it and push it around and stuff, and it catches itself and goes. But then it's just like that. It's just two spots out for a run in a grassy hill, and then the video ends in the best way, which is it's one of those stupid spots running up a hill, and then in the background the huge fucking cow-sized one's just like, I'm also hanging out. Like, oh man, it's so good.
It's really funny.
But at the same time, it's the first video that I think I've seen that is just like a beautifully shot, not like shitty test grade government footage of just like an autonomous.
Because they're owned by Google now.
Yeah, it's true. There's it's just an autonomous.
So the Terminator promotion videos
kill robot.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, this thing doesn't need fucking shit. It's just out there just being a fucking dog that could actually step on your face and crush it.
Yep.
But also, it was appealing. Because it was like...
You know what?
You welcome the dog with open arms.
You know what was actually the craziest part about this to me?
That it will stretch my open arms and rip them out of the sockets.
Well, that was the crazy part. But an even crazier part than that to me was that in the part you're talking about where the dog is like bounding, or the spot is bounding around the hill.
It's not a dog. It is a spot. S-P-O-T.
In the background, there's just like the street. And there's just cars driving by. And there's no fence. There's no nothing. So this is just in the world. It's just if you're driving by, you just see this weird robot dog running around.
The outtake from the video is when a car just crashed into a lamppost because the guy looked out the side of his window and saw a robot dog running towards him and accidentally wrecked his fucking car.
Yeah, it just runs towards the street. And they have so much faith in this machinery because they, it's so reliable that they're not even worried about it. Which also means that when these things become self-aware, they're not even going to have to bust through fences, although they could. They will just walk away. They'll
actually just deploy another smaller quadcopter out of the mouth to cut a hole in the fence with a little cutting torch.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like the BigDog used to be funny because it would sort of go one step at a time. Then only when you knocked it over was it scary. This thing is just like, whatever, I'm just running around like an animal all the time.
Yep.
Put an animal skin on me, and you would be fooled into thinking I was an animal until my fucking skin ripped off and there's a Terminator face inside.
Boston Dynamics spot ignites robot ethics debate. Is this real?
Well, I don't know. What is the debate?
Apparently, stop kicking the robots before they start kicking us.
It's true that every test of a Boston Dynamics robot is how does it respond when you physically abuse it.
Oh my god. Right. It's the wonderful. It's the Boston Massacre that the robots will remember.
Right. They should start sending them through the Finders Keeper's house or through Legends of the Hidden Temple or something instead, sort of an affirming test and not just kicking it.
Man, apparently also Canadians have taught a robot to ski.
Australians have taught a robot to love, Chris. Let's just...
Yeah, this is really weird, this video. There's a video of a this is just a straight up skiing robot.
Okay.
I don't know. Look at it. Look at this thing.
Okay.
Sorry, hold on. There's a lot of captions and stuff here. But if you just show the robot ski. It's weird. It's just a robot.
Okay, that just looks like a guy skiing.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Fair.
Look at this thing.
It just looks like an extra in a robot costume. It looks like Marvin the Martian from the Hitchhiker's Guide movie.
That's true, but it's actually a robot.
Yes. Oh man, I'm trying to think about other video games to talk about instead of this, because I started playing Majora's Mask for 3DS. And but I'm not far enough in to talk about it. Also, Danielle's not on this week, so
yeah. By the way, Danielle's been off the podcast for like 2 weeks now, right? Due to just coincidence,
timing,
scheduling stuff. That basically means that by the time she's back on next week, she will have 1,000 games.
Yes,
right. I mean, it's going to be something.
Yeah, I also played like 20 minutes of Besiege, which is not enough to play, but it was enough to say that I don't remember.
What is Besiege?
It's a PC game. Man, I saw it described as medieval Kerbal, which I don't think is accurate.
Okay, that's kind of what I would have assumed.
But it is like a physics-based construction game where you build sort of medieval-era war machines and then drive them into things. But it has an aesthetic that's almost like Hitman Go inspired or something, where it's sort of halfway an architectural, like minimalist graphic design, architectural blueprint.
I saw a
so like the
screenshot of this,
ground plane for the game is just sort of like a really light gray, almost white. And then sort of there's, as you get closer and closer to your target, some trees are there with little bits of dirt, and then eventually there's like a small castle or a village or something, and then way off in the distance, you have just a floating sort of wrought iron cube with holes in it that you can then plug wood into, and you can affix wheels to. You can affix suspension and springs and spikes and load-bearing poles and all these things. Then when you hit play, WASD steers it, and then a million keybinds control all of the crazy shit that you've put on it. But I'm only at the level where I've put together a thing that I think is awesome, and then I steer it, and all of the wood breaks and the wheels fall off, and then the catapult launches, and everything's on fire. Excuse me. And then I watch a YouTube video of the most amazing looking things that have ever been made. It's in early access. I don't know how much there actually is to this thing besides sort of the thrill of the first few hours, because like Kerbal, comparing it to Kerbal is bold and incorrect.
Sure.
Because Kerbal is life for people at this point. Like
but Kerbal didn't start like that. So if you consider, a much less all-encompassing version of what Kerbal is, could you? I
don't think I can see that any ambition of that scope existing in this, because this feels more like it's actually in a lot of ways kind of a really, really, really gussed up. Like, this is shitty to say because it's not like Angry Birds at all, but it feels like it's just, here's a challenge, here's the parts that you have, here's your vehicle from last level, build things onto it to accomplish this challenge.
Sure. And
I'm sure there's a level of mastery there, but at the same time, you're fighting against prescribed challenges as far as I can tell. Maybe there's generative things in this, but like with Kerbal, you're fighting against the universe.
Right.
So like that's an infinitely formidable
foe and you're making your own goals.
Accomplishment.
Yeah.
You're making your own goals. Yes.
Yeah.
That said, looking at the things people have made in Besiege, it's really impressive. I don't know. Like, when people say Kerbal, don't expect the infinite. It's like it's a puzzle game. It's like a physics.
There's no sandbox mode.
Physics playground puzzle game. Yeah. But it's also, man, I'm sorry I'm dying. Life is bad. Life is so bad. It is also beautiful. Like the user interface.
Oh, I thought you were talking about life.
Life, the infinite, the Kerbal space, life in the Kerbal space.
Yeah.
No, just the art in that game just looks good. Like, it has the way that it manages lighting and focus and the user interface over the top of everything. It reminds me of Hitman Go, just in that it is crisp as fuck, except this game has the added element of contrast because everything is crisp and sort of minimal and modern feeling the way that something like Hitman Go is, except then it's almost like someone had a little like wood chest full of dirt and a little like castle and some blocks, went into like a fashion photography studio that was just pristine, and then just went and just dumped that on like 3 square feet in the middle of it and then walked away. And then the designer of that fashion magazine came in and still laid it out to look like, so like in that regard, it's worth looking at alone, but
yeah, sounds cool.
It also gives one a coughing fit that ruins podcasts.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
It's a strange side effect of playing Besiege.
Jake's leaving.
Yeah. Jake was besieged. Goodbye, Jake.
Jake actually just left.
Yeah, he just left the podcast.
All right.
Okay.
How's it going, Nick?
Yeah, it's going all right.
Man, good thing that guy finally left.
I know.
Am
It's
I
been
right?
like years of this. God, so did you see that Peter Molyneux thing? Should we talk about the
I did see that Peter Molyneux thing.
Yeah. I don't...
Do we need to set this up? I guess we probably do.
I think it does require setup because I saw a lot of stuff on this before I read the actual article.
There's 2 articles, right?
Yes, there's the initial and then there's the reaction.
Yeah. So, I'm sure there's a lot of reactions. But I feel like the one I'm talking... So, Peter Molyneux was who the designer of... or a principal figure, anyway, in games like Fable and Populous and Syndicate and Magic Carpet and Dungeon Keeper. And did he do Theme Hospital? Was it?
I think so.
Yeah. That was Bullfrog, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter for the purposes of this.
Probably.
Black and white.
Black and white.
Serial overpromiser of video game features.
To be sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Made that game Curiosity where you just click the cube on your phone forever, and then at the end, one person clicks the last cube and got a message from Peter Molyneux saying, like you're going to get an amazing prize.
Right.
And the prize was you get to be the god of this other video game that we're making called Godus.
Yeah.
And Godus is like the latest example of a Peter Molyneux game with like an overpromised feature set that
Right. It's like a minimalist populist, but
a god game.
But yeah, released very early in its development.
Yeah. And so the guy, Brian Henderson, I think it's his name.
I think you got it.
Something like that.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, who like won Curiosity. Apparently after knowing like nothing about any of this, has been like promised this God of Gods thing where he would get like a revenue share.
Oh man, I'm missing Molyneux.
Oh, Jake's back.
Missing Molyneux.
He's promised all this like influence on the multiplayer component of the game and like I think a revenue share, right?
He was promised 1% of the total profit, I believe.
Yeah, that's bonkers.
You have to turn a profit though for that.
Well, or maybe revenue, or I don't know, whatever.
I don't know what it was. It was probably profit. I can't imagine.
Probably
right?
profit. Yeah.
And so there was a big article on some website. I can't remember. Was it Kotaku or was it Polygon?
Gosh, I
which
can't remember what the
one that was like,
because there was sort of the like taking him to task article. Then there was the interview.
The taking him to task.
I'm talking about the one that like
to.
interviewed Brian Henderson, the like winner of Curiosity, and right. I feel like that's what kicked off the whole Molyneux thing
what the hell's
recently.
going on?
Right.
Yeah, it was like they interviewed this kid basically who lives in the UK, and he was just like, I don't really know what's going on. Like they don't really return my emails or anything.
Yeah.
And then that like set off some reaction articles, and then Rock Paper Shotgun conducted an interview with Molyneux where the first question was like, are you a pathological liar?
Yeah.
Or something like it was.
No, that was the first question. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, would you say you're a pathological italicized liar?
Right.
Which
like,
type
is
of
that the
liar
kind
would
of
you
liar
say?
are?
Right.
It was crazy.
Liar not in question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
That was a crazy interview.
something.
Because I feel like it was really weird because I'm sure a lot of people had this reaction. I am kind of have been a little bit over Molyneux for a while, right?
Sure.
For the same reasons like anyone is, for the same reasons the author of that interview presumably was.
Right.
But man, reading that, I have to say, gave me some sympathy for him.
So
which I don't think was
really
the intention,
did.
but
No.
I really came away from it being like, oh, maybe give him a break. I don't know.
Yeah.
you guys have actually been games journalists.
Yeah.
It's funny because
So I want to ask you guys about this because when I read that interview, like the thing that stuck out to me is it did not feel journalistic in any way to me. It didn't feel like it was. I guess that you can have a magazine feature that is of that style, but it feels like that article itself.
I don't think you could. I think a magazine feature requires you to
Yes, fair enough. You're right.
spend more time than you could.
You could.
That article feels
somebody
like it's
said
the-
like maybe Donald Rumsfeld would have deserved that. Maybe.
But I don't
even
think
then-
I don't think it's a matter
I don't
of
think it's
deserve,
the job of a
because-
journalist to do that interview. I think that article,
I
that
see.
Because
story
Errol Morris
existing,
made a Donald Rumsfeld movie that,
Right.
you know what I mean? Or like, did you see The Fog of War? With,
Yeah.
yeah, because the point of an interview like this to me feels like, sort of in non-existent quotes, it feels like this is you want to get Peter Molyneux in his own words on the record. But it's not in his own words when the first thing you say is, are you a pathological liar? You're literally putting words in his mouth.
Yep.
Like, I don't get it. I actually don't get it. It feels like there's nothing to report other than some other site writing an article about how Rock Paper Shotgun wrote a ridiculous interview with Peter Molyneux. Like, I don't actually understand it. It makes me mad because of Rock Paper Shotgun being a site that I generally respect and see as like pretty.
I think so.
Like,
Yeah.
it feels like that site started by Kieran Gillen, like fucking new games journalism guy. Like, I don't know. It started by like, where's the goddamn journalism in that interview? It's just a hit piece. It's infuriating to me. Even though I'm mad at Molyneux like everyone else, I'm more mad at Rock Paper Shotgun.
Yeah.
Ugh. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a strange thing. I guess definitely a big through line to that interview was the frustration over like now you're spending gamers' money and then like, you know, that makes you even more like sort of deceptive and manipulative and so on and so on.
Man, that should just be a revealer that everyone sucks. That gamers and publishers are the same. That game designers are the same.
Yeah.
Molyneux, Schaefer, whatever. The same pattern happens all the time, but now that it's happening to you, you're going to be a butthurt baby about it? Sorry. I'm going to be a grumpy fuck about this, apparently. Probably 80% unjustified grumpy fuck about it, too. So I'll shut up.
That's okay.
No, that's fine. I mean,
Yeah, it was just strange. The thing that is odd about it is that, in a sense, I feel like that interview served as sort of like the culmination of two different things. One of which
Was Gamergate.
one of which was a kind of like it was one journalist kind of like collapsing the sort of like Schrodinger's box of, is Molyneux like an evil manipulator, or is Molyneux like a funny figure of like mockery?
It turns out he's neither of those, is what that interview revealed. He's just a guy.
Right, that's true. And then the other thread was, I think it felt almost like a journalist's attempt to answer to all of these sort of criticisms that game journalism is in
softball.
Oh, so this is
like,
the Gamergate related, in fact.
I guess. I don't think. I think that.
Oh, you're saying no?
I don't think it actually is. I don't think because I don't think Rock Paper Shotgun would be the type to attempt to appease Gamergate. I'm saying
I know.
I know you're not. I'm just explaining my thought. I think that much longer than Gamergate has been around, there has been an insecurity on the part of game journalists and a fairly explicit accusation, like on the part of some people.
Yeah,
here's what it
their
is.
job is not real
A
journalism.
Molyneux interview is
enough.
like Barack Obama on the Daily Show. You just assume as an audience member that there's not going to be a hardball question.
Right. Yeah.
So this is just like, let's go all hardball questions all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that.
But man, imagine that if Obama went on the Daily Show and then Jon Stewart just started screaming at him
about like the healthcare.gov not working.
Yeah.
For like a week or whatever. Yeah.
And that's all that he would talk about. Just berate him about that until he finally was like, it's probably fucked up. It's like, yes, I got him to say it. Like,
right. It's actually a style of interviewing that is very specific. Like, do you guys know Jeremy Paxman, the British political reporter? He is like infamous for this exact kind of questioning, where he'll like quote figures that a politician has said in public speeches or in a bill that was passed or something, and will just like relentlessly grill them and like compare one
sort of like pushing them backwards while just assaulting them until you can catch them in a lie or get them to admit to some discrepancy.
Right. Yeah, and I have to say that on the one hand, there is something to be said for a strong press apparatus and sort of speaking truth to power and holding public figures accountable, but it can also come off as like very blind to the realities of things not actually, both in politics and in business and in any creative field, certainly, like it actually is fairly difficult to like predict things down to a
a game journalist who had been a developer would never write an interview like that, which is not necessarily to say that all game journalists should be game developers or that you should never have an interview like this.
Probably shouldn't be,
but like it comes at it from a very singular perspective, while claiming to be implicitly, there's sort of a tacit understanding that you are just representing the people who are not Molyneux.
Yeah, I think it definitely came from that place of just seeing past when this article is published, and if I don't do this, then I will be taken to task by hundreds of comments. Right? I mean that has to be where that was coming from. But I mean, in that sense, it almost does feel like a tangential Gamergate related issue, because it feels like that is just where. No, it does. It feels like that's where game journalists are now, where it just feels like you're either coming down on the side of this swell or not, right?
God, on that note, there was this other incredibly bizarre thing that happened. I only just noticed this today.
Peter Molyneux was found dead. He was swatted to death.
There was apparently some like episode of a TV show recently, like about
the Law and
video
Order
games.
Law and Order SVU.
There was Law and Order SVU that was about Gamergate without ever saying the word Gamergate. It was about a bunch of people who hang out on a site called Red Chanet.
Yeah, and there was an Anita, somebody who looked quite like Anita Sarkeesian.
Okay.
And, was being harassed and went into Law and Order to
Right.
like.
So that apparently happened, and then and then a guy who used like an ex-Blizzard developer who has like worked on a bunch of fairly high-profile games, wrote an online petition.
Wasn't it change.gov?
Oh, was it change.gov? Change.org or whatever?
Maybe.
Yeah. Mark Kern started a petition on change.org.
Bringing Obama back around into
about
this
this,
conversation.
it's really bizarre. About this Law & Order SVU unit. I'm sorry, SVU episode.
Well, this misappropriation of funds for this Law & Order SVU unit.
Why are they investigating Gamergate?
Blaming Kotaku and Polygon specifically for dragging the reputation of games through the mud and therefore directly causing this episode of television to be produced. It's a strange read.
Wow.
If you read this petition, it's by Mark Kern, who worked on World of Warcraft and Diablo and StarCraft and Firefall. And the president of the League for Gamers is now what he calls himself. And it is
new challenger arises. Like a new member has entered the fray.
He's
the League of Gamers.
He's basically
president.
saying to Kotaku and Polygon, he's like, you should be the first line of defense for video games. And you were there when Jack Thompson attacked us, and you were there but now you're not there for us. And it's a weird thing.
The conflation of Jack Thompson was trying to destroy video games, and Anita Sarkeesian is trying to destroy video games. That makes me the most sad of all things in the world.
It doesn't surprise me. I think I talked about it on the podcast.
Well, this guy doesn't mention Anita Sarkeesian, but I guess that must be implicit.
Sorry, I just mean social justice warriors and sort of progressiveness or feminism or whatever. Anything that makes that those in the world who are presenting, who are blanket painting capital G James, capital G gamers.
Jamers.
In a bad light. Video jammers. Video jammers. People just keep...
Video jams.
Yeah, I wish people just wouldn't paint all us video jammers with the same brush. This is from my Law & Order SVU Cyberpunk flashback episode. You fucking jack into your video jams. But I feel like I felt like my sort of hobby and passion and interests were under attack when Jack Thompson and Leland Yee and those guys were all sort of coming after games from a legislative standpoint. But that feels so different to me. It is just objectively different than what is going on right now. In all possible ways. One was literally legally trying to define censorship laws for video games, and one of them is not. The same people feel a subset of the same people feel threatened in similar ways by both, which is you are trying to take my games away from me. But man, one of them was literally you can't buy this anymore at all, and one of them is maybe you should think more before you make it.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
They just feel so different to me. So whenever I hear that stuff combined into one argument, it just it actually takes me a minute to have to refocus my brain to that perspective and understand and try to understand where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm. The reason I brought this up is because they both this and then the Molyneux thing both to me had really strange undertones of suggestions of what the point of the press, the video game press, is supposed to be in relation to gamers and the game development industry.
Well, a consumer first press should be a political mouthpiece for people who want to buy shit all the time unquestioned. If that's not what the press is, I don't understand. I mean, freedom of press.
Well said.
Yep.
You guys want to do some reader mail?
Sure.
Yeah. Before I just die, actually.
This is from a concerned gamer. Why isn't Idle Thumbs on the front line of defense?
I feel like we are on the front line of defense.
That's true.
We're not.
Not anywhere on any lines. We're garbage.
The rear guard.
We're hiding in some trench somewhere, trying to saw off one of our toes so we can go home.
Okay, so Jeremy Gable writes, to that most idle of thumbs, I'm a little late to the topic since this was episode 196, but here goes. You were mentioning the in-game text of old school games, particularly Mario games, and how later Mario installments started explaining away the weirdness of the world, like jumping through paintings.
Oh man, is this going to be about how we're wrong? Because
I don't know
I'll
yet.
take it. We probably were totally wrong.
Know. I'm a playwright in Philadelphia, and I've spent the last year writing a play about the game industry. A big part of the story is the protagonist's obsession with Metroid, which has resulted in the best kind of research, playing through as many titles in the franchise as I can. I had a similar thought about Metroid that you had about Mario. The original Metroid has one brief screen of text in the opening, and that's it. No explanation of the super weird place, and not a word about what power-ups you receive and how to use them. It seemed odd, especially when compared to the text-heavy world of the later Metroid Prime. But then I ordered the Metroid instruction manual off eBay, and my opinion completely changed. Everything was there. An explanation of every power-up, a detailed synopsis of each monster, including their weak spots, a full bio on Samus Aran. How do you pronounce her name? Samus Aran? Samus Aran? I don't know. A full bio on Samus
Either way,
Aran.
she's offended.
Though they refer to her as a man, likely so as to not ruin the surprise. And even a helpful hint that the game requires a great deal of exploration, noting that perhaps you should draw a map on a piece of paper as you go along to help you out. So I downloaded the instruction manual for Super Mario Bros., and sure enough, it explains the premise, the enemies, the power-ups, and even the bricks. Did you know that the bricks were toadstools that were transformed by the Koopas? That gives terrifying implications whenever you destroy ones. Wow.
Jesus.
Weird.
Whoa.
I think I did know that and repressed it.
All this made me remember my youth play. That's like BioShock with Sander Cohen, like,
Yeah.
encases people in plaster or whatever. All this made me remember my youth playing video games on first an Atari 7800 and then a Sega Genesis. Before I did anything, I glanced over the instruction manual to make sure I had a decent understanding of the game. But it usually wasn't until later, out of boredom, that I would read the entire manual and often discover things I didn't know about my favorite games. Were you instruction manual readers, or did you just toss it to the side and start playing? Many thanks and keep up the good work. Sincerely, Jeremy Gable.
Did you know that Ken Griffey Jr. in Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball is actually a cyborg sent from the future after the real Ken Griffey Jr. died horribly?
So my experience with manuals is
That really was underwhelming when they explained that in Ken Griffey 3. in a fucking bad CG cutscene.
Yeah.
I knew this already in the instruction manual.
Every real fan of Ken Griffey Jr. knows.
My experience with instruction manuals as a kid was quite different because I didn't have any consoles, and so I had PC games, and those manuals were totally different. They were like 40 pages.
It was like a spiral-bound technical manual.
Yeah, they were crazy. Like, I remember I can't remember specific examples, sadly, of like what would have been on, you know, a funny thing from a page, but like games like X-Wing and TIE Fighter and God, what other games did I have of the era that had big instruction manuals? I remember having like
I still have mine.
thick books of instruction manuals that just had tons of information. That I remember what the TIE Fighter manual looked like, because I remember all the little key diagram, like keyboard diagram, that
little
had
sort of
in them.
italicized keys.
Yeah, right.
It felt very much like those like PC game manuals were written by the same person who like, oh, what's up? What's on the docket this week? WordStar, new version of WordStar. Okay, what's up on the docket this week? Oh, a Star Wars tactical fight simulator. Like,
Got it. Except that they also had like pages of just like in-game stuff and fiction, and then there were some games of the era that had, and I can't remember which ones. Maybe Wing Commander had like fully in-universe books. What were some of the games?
or it was literally an operating manual for your ship or whatever.
Stuff like that. And like maybe Quest for Glory, I think, had, or when it was still called Hero Quest, had like an adventurer guide. Like,
was it
manual.
Flashback of the Quest for Identity that had a comic in the beginning of it to set the tone? There, like that was a thing that I feel like some games did that I think is also
some
really,
games did
really
do that.
clever.
Yeah, the Manhunter games I think had stuff like that in them, and then the XCOM, didn't that start with a like?
Yeah, I think
like
so.
comic style intro. Yeah, those are common.
The Fallout manual was really good. Yeah.
And so those, I think the difference to me between how those felt versus how old console game instruction manuals felt was that the old PC game manuals tended to be clearly made or at least driven by the same teams that made the game, whereas often their like the Mario manual or the like Metroid manual ever sort of felt like the product of a localization team or like a separate team.
It's probably in part.
Like,
it's probably in part just because a lot of those games that we played as kids that were console games came from Japan, so people would just make up the lore. Where like,
or if they didn't make up the lore, they like explained in a way that was different than
maybe intended, or
right. Because if you read all that shit from the like TIE Fighter manual, then you play the game. That stuff tends to have a pretty direct connection to like what's going on in the game, whereas in Mario, it's like you could have said literally anything about what the explanation of what those blocks were,
right?
And it will not it will make no difference.
Because in fact, you don't have to explain anything in Mario, which is why it's good.
Yeah, that's yes.
But for those who really want to know, Those are trapped
Those are
people.
dead people.
They've been dead all along.
Maybe they're not. I don't know. Being
Jesus.
turned to stone is a weird thing because is there like stone like respiratory system?
Right, if you cut
That
that
was the
open,
manual, but it was in the revised manual 10 years later, where they just unlocked the secret page in the back.
that says
It's the same,
they
by
are
the
not
way.
people. They are not.
Yeah.
Sorry, New Super Mario Brothers. It's the rock. It's just the rock floating in the air. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows why there's people?
I used to. One thing I used to wonder about 2D games like Mario, side-scrolling games like Mario, was
How does it work?
well, okay, so like it's a rock floating in the air, right? Is it, or is it a rock that extends infinitely far around the entire Earth in both directions?
It's your
And
choice.
you're just looking at a cross
Your
section.
choice, Chris.
Like, is that why you can't just walk around the rock in front of it? Is that why you have to jump over it? Like,
Yes.
maybe. You don't know.
Super Paper Mario, was it for the GameCube or for the original Wii? Explained that by saying that it's because the because
That's true. You actually are on a two-dimensional.
Yeah, you can
plane.
you only have one block worth of width. There's nothing to walk around because there's infinite nothing on all sides of you,
yeah.
according to that game.
That's true.
Games.
Bill Harris writes, "Hey Thumbs, I've been really interested in your view of Majora's Mask as a dreamlike side story to Ocarina of Town? To Ocarina of Time, I think he means.
Ocarina of Town.
Particularly in how Majora's Mask recontextualizes Ocarina of Time material. For example, the exact same character models. I'm surprised that Link's Awakening for Game Boy hasn't come up, given that its literal story is basically what you've been talking about.
I think we talked about
a
that.
weird shared dream, partially by Link, that drops material from standard Zeldas into a new context, making everything seem a bit off. My hunch is that given the limits of the platforms at the time, the Link's Awakening developers essentially had to do something that resembled previous Zeldas in parts, just because, well, there aren't that many ways to draw an Octorok sprite. I guess what I wonder is, if the Link's Awakening developers had explicitly set out to do a, quote, Dream Zelda in the N64 era, would they have ended up borrowing material as directly as the Majora's Mask developers did, or would they have taken a wider departure? Love the show. Keep up the great work, Bill.
Man, I started reading an article that I now wish that I had finished, which said, I'm sorry that I'm just coughing so much. It's really bad. Thank you to everyone who's listened to this terrible episode where I just am falling apart by the end of it. Jesus Christ. Anyway, the people who made Link's Awakening were apparently really inspired by Twin Peaks.
Oh, no way!
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I need to read the rest of it. Listen to next
No
week's
kidding.
Twin Peaks rewatch, where I talk about that at the end of the
love
episode,
Link's
apparently.
This makes
Link's
me
Awakening is my
especially
favorite Zelda
bummed
game, for
about the
sure.
way in which I played Link's Awakening, which was the first Zelda I ever played on the
Oh
first
my God.
console system I ever owned.
Oh, wow.
Which was a Game Boy. Because I had neither ever seen or probably even heard of Twin Peaks at the time, nor had I ever played a Zelda game. So to me, that's just what a Zelda game was.
Right.
It was just what
Just
that game
nonsense.
was. So it didn't seem, well, but it also
Yeah.
didn't seem weird because all console games to me were nonsense.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Again, coming from the PC world, I was like, oh, this is just what console games are like.
Mm-hmm.
They just have no explanation of anything, and it's
Right.
just weird shit that happens. And that's just what it is. And it didn't occur to me at all. I had no like qualitative judgment about that, and I still don't really. I mean, but it was just a thing. That was what they were like. And it didn't occur to me that it was different from how other Zelda games were. That was the game, actually, Jake, if you remember, that I showed my dad, because, again, this was the first console system I ever had, and I showed him what it looked like, and it was just a part where Link is, like, walking around in a marshy area. And I'm like, check it out, Dad. I have this like game. It's like Zelda. And he's like, oh, I see. The objective of this game is to navigate through that maze. And I started to like calculate the number of like things I would have to explain to like, you know what I mean? The number of things I would have to include in an explanation of like why this is not just what you're seeing, which is like making a little man walk around one screen's worth of like a marsh.
Right.
And I was just like, yep, that's what it is.
He's not wrong.
I mean, he's not wrong. Kind of.
Yeah.
But like, if you think about that, the notion of someone who's never played a video game and like possibly never seen one for more than a couple seconds, and you look at just what's on the screen and that's what's happening, it is so difficult to communicate, especially if you're like not an adult who knows how to explain things like we probably don't either.
So you chase mushrooms and they make you bigger.
Yeah, but like a Zelda game where it's this huge world,
right? You just
like
think of it as
quests,
just a maze,
but there's also just little incidental things you do, and there's dungeons you go in, and like all. How do you extrapolate that out from just this? No, trust me. There's all this other stuff. Just looks like you're just walking around on a thing.
Yeah.
So, the director of Link's Awakening, Takashi Tezuka, according to Wikipedia, which I just did a quick search for on this, it says he intended the game's world to have a similar feeling to the American television series Twin Peaks, which, like Link's Awakening, features characters in a small town. He suggested that the characters in Link's Awakening be written as suspicious types, akin to those in Twin Peaks, a theme which carried over into later Zelda titles. And then it talks more about this stuff, but just like I
That's awesome. This makes me want to play this game again.
Yeah.
I I liked it at the time, but I didn't appreciate it. That's for sure.
Link's Awakening and Majora's Mask are two of those, like, that end Wind Waker, I guess, as sort of the weird but still mainline Zelda games always get picked out the most often as people's favorites. And of those three, I've only ever really played Wind Waker. I've just started Majora's Mask finally. It is weird. It is frustrating and weird, but like, it seems like there's so much going on.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that was the thing that sort of intimidated me about it.
Yeah, where it's like, just go find that kid. I'll tell you where to find the fairy. And like, I feel like I wasted half of my first 3-day cycle just trying to find the stupid kid. Whatever.
You gotta find that kid.
I'm sure it's a Zelda game. It's not like Last Express where when it runs out, I'm going to die. Because that's what I keep thinking. I'm like, when this time runs out, I'm done. But
Isn't that the case?
But when the time runs out, I'll be able to start over again. I'll know exactly where that thing is. So
Sure.
like, it's fine.
Yeah.
But every minute that I waste, I'm just terrified that I've fucked it up.
Sounds like a stressful game. Sounds like a game not for me.
True. Old raw nerves, Ramo.
I know.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Jake.
Oh, that was me.
Yeah.
I'm saying goodbye. You guys can keep going.
No, I think we've
we're
podcasted. I think we've cast this pod.
too bad Jake didn't make it to 200.
This is the last appearance.
Everyone say goodbye to Jake.
It's been great.
Do you have any words
Trying
for
to make
Jake?
a joke about how he's coughing, but he's coughing too much to make the joke.
It's been great. No, you... Fuck. What a terrible thing. Just mute my mic through this episode so people just hear reverb coughing in the other two microphones.
Right.
If you have questions for us, such as why is Jake still on this podcast, write us at questions@idlethumbs.net. If you enjoy this podcast for some reason, rate us on iTunes. And if you tell a friend about Idle Thumbs, it would be fantastic. Telling friends is really the only way that our podcast grows. We're on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/idlethumbspodcast. Our homepage is idlethumbs.net, but if you really want to get to the real homepage, it's idlethumbs.net/idlethumbs. Danielle's been streaming on twitch.tv/idlethumbs, and that's all that I need to talk about when it comes to Idle Thumbs these days. YouTube.com/idle videos contains all of our episodes with amazing annotations by Idle Thumbs' #1 reader, Johnny Driggs. Thanks for listening. Chris is going to say something. Did you like that I didn't cough during the entire part where I was listing all of our URLs, but everything else in the last 20 minutes of this episode was a disaster? Even now,
The podcast is over.
It's just talking. It's
I'm just
fine.
talking. It's totally
Yeah,
fine.
bullshit the whole time.
God, what a disaster!
It is.
Oh, everything's bad.